Welcome back to the first live show of the new season of the Wellbeing Show. I'm Noel, I'm your host, and I better turn my phone off so it doesn't buzz too much. And we've got a great guest up tonight, Ryan Scott from Break Free of the Stigma. I probably said that wrong, UK, haven't I? But
Break the Stigma UK.
Break the Stigma. It's just we're having a joke before the show, and then my brain just didn't work. I'm trying to get into Break the Stigma UK. We'll be talking about that soon. Just to remind you, this is a live show, and so you can get in touch with us. We're streaming on Facebook Live and YouTube at the moment, so drop any questions into that, or give me a call, 07506 319 745 +44 if you're contact me outside of the UK. Drop the first 0 and use WhatsApp, probably send a message or anything. I'll be looking at it if not listening to it. Yeah, it'd be really good to hear from you. And we're going to get to Ryan in just a minute. I'm going to give him a chance to get his energy back because he's just back from partying in IB and he's still sort of a bit tired, poor lamb. You know, he's sort of had it beaten out of him a bit. Obviously, you know, this week is strange in the UK. The Queen died, and that's never happened to me before, I have to say. Sort of, I've been in the UK all my life, 55 years old now, and she's been around and part of it all that time. And we were just talking before the show about it, and we all felt about it. And like, I suppose, any straw poll of Brits at the moment, there's we all have a great deal of respect for Elizabeth and what she did and what she achieved. And a certain amount of sadness about her passing, I think, is you know, in that usual sort of understated British way. And we were just sharing memories before. You may have memories and you may have feelings about it. I'd encourage you to share them as well. I've been writing a lot this week about bereavement and loss, and my sort of clinical, personal feeling is that this event, this public mourning, will probably reawaken and awaken for a lot of people memories and experiences of loss themselves, particularly as we've just come out of the pandemic as well, really. And a lot of people died during that time in a really short space of time. And a lot of people were not able to organise mourning rituals such as funerals. We're not allowed to go, and that complicated things for people. So my sense is that this may bring up strong feelings for people, and I would encourage you to allow those feelings to be and have respect for whatever's going on for yourself, and also have respect for whatever's going on for somebody else. And tolerance at the moment. I did go down to the palace at the weekend, and it was a mood I can't describe, and I still can't put my finger on it, what exactly it was like. And a very strange, indeed somber experience, very respectful experience. And that's all I really want to say about it. If you are having difficult feelings around it, have some compassion for yourself and show a bit of self-love is my suggestion. And if you don't have any strong feelings about it, but somebody that you know does, again, support them if you can, empathise with them. Being born and dying are the two most fundamental things that all of us share as human beings. And mourning rituals, i.e. sort of things that help us remember the importance of somebody in our life, have been around since Neanderthal times. And in fact, in many ways, they define the beginning of human culture, that we were burying people, making graves and decorating graves from Neanderthal times. So it's very important stuff on a symbolic level. That's all I'll say about it. Again, please feel free to reach out and comment if you wish about that. I want to turn now to Ryan and welcome you on the show. I've had to put you off several times because over the summer things are so busy. So I'm delighted but finally got you here and got you back for the first show of the new season. So welcome back, Ryan, and welcome back to the UK. And of course, you went through that experience of finding out about the death of the Queen while you were away, purportedly on holiday. What was that like?
Strange. Because we got a message to say that the Queen's doctors are concerned for her health, and you've read that so many times over the past few years. And then it wasn't until we found out the family were going there, I thought maybe this time it is a bit more serious. And obviously, she then passed. It was strange because obviously we was on holiday.
Yeah.
But where we was in Ibiza, I think Pete was still a bit more involved with the partying side rather than remembering the Queen at the time.
And then to this country, what was it like coming back to the UK while all this stuff was going on?
Yeah, obviously headline news everywhere, like it has been for the past sort of like 5 or 6 days now, and continues to be, which is expected.
Have you got any personal experience of loss yourself? I mean, I lost my mum a long time ago and my father not that long ago. So I've been through various sort of experiences. And also I remember actually a lot of friends died. I used to be in theatre and I had a lot of friends who were gay in the early days of AIDS. A lot of my mates died. I stopped counting after 20, to be honest. It's not too much. But it was really, really quite sort of difficult time. So what about yourself? Any experience of loss?
Yeah, grandparents. All my grandparents are gone now. Friends, uncle when I was younger. So yeah, I've got experience of loss.
Yeah, and does it evoke those feelings for you again, or is it those are pretty?
No, you kind of have to look at life that you got to celebrate their life, and they wouldn't want you to be upset that they've gone. You kind of just got to push through it and keep going. My granddad certainly would kick my ass if I was waking up every day crying. He'd want me just out there enjoying myself. So I kind of have a beer from every now and again. Never forget him. Same as my other grandparents, but you know.
Good. Well, welcome back. It's good to see you. And you're here to tell us something about yourself, but also about the organisation that you set up, which is looking at men's mental health, which, again, there's a strong connection, I think, with the royal family in terms of the two sons of Charles, who both have been strong advocates for mental health and psychological well-being, and both as guys. Have you ever sort of heard either of them talk about their own mental health issues?
Yeah, both. Especially, obviously, with the Invictus Games that Harry does for the soldiers that have been injured at war. And obviously, William as well was a big advocate on ITV during the World Cup with mental health and getting Britain talking. It was all over ITV at the time. So yeah, I think anything like that obviously massively helps men, but there is still a big problems around it.
Yeah. I remember hearing William in particular. Never heard Harry live, but I heard William live talk about his experience of developing PTSD because he used to drive an ambulance, a helicopter ambulance, and pick up, broken bodies and people suffering and stuff like that. And he said it never really affected him until his first child was born. And then he said it was like hitting a brick wall. He couldn't function. It just really sort of smashed him to bits. And then he had to do something about it. And it was a really interesting experience to, see a guy talking quite openly about those experiences in a sort of public event, and lots of CEOs of business and stuff like that, all of them sort of nodding sagely, but most of them would probably run away from anything called a feeling sort of if it ever came near them. So you've become an advocate for breaking the stigma around mental health issues for men. How did you get involved in that? What was your sort of journey into that?
I suffered mental health when I was younger, really badly. I was anorexic, suicidal, anxiety. I was in a pretty bad way. I was ready to check out. I was ready to hit that ticket. I was ready to just hit that punch card. I was ready to go. Fortunately, I had a great support network around me, family, friends, managed to turn it around. And ever since then, I've just been kind of, making sure I'm only going one direction, whether that's, you know, setbacks on the way, up and downs, just keep moving forward. And once I felt strong enough, I always wanted to do something to help others, because the biggest thing for me was having support when I was getting better. And unfortunately, there's a lot of people out there that don't have the support that I had. So I wanted to create something that was like a brotherhood, that was everyone supports each other. So if you haven't got that support, we can provide you that support. You know, we can let you know you're not alone. We can, you know, have peer-to-peer sessions. We can have all lads talk about their experiences. And when you consider that 1 in 4 men will suffer with mental health in their lifetime, there's never going to be someone short that needs it.
What sort of age were you when these things came upon you? What was
14.
14? Wow.
14, yeah, I was young. I was always overweight as a kid. And then I started getting fitter, started losing weight, and just become obsessed with then going from being the overweight kid to the kid that had to be the best.
Right.
And unfortunately that spiraled. A lot of the time it'd be comments from people saying how well I looked, how good I was doing.
Yeah.
And being young, reading fitness magazines, you know, researching things with a mind that's not fully developed is kind of a bit dangerous. And I think it's even more dangerous now, because back when I was 14, there wasn't so much social media influence as there is now. There wasn't so much easy accessibility to it. And I still found it fairly easy back then. So it's even easier to get hold of now, in terms of social media influences, body image, how you should look conceived for a platform rather than what real life is. Like I say, I was looking in men's fitness magazines and thought I had to look like that.
It's interesting, because it sort of, there is what's called fat shaming, I guess. There's quite a lot of that goes on, and you didn't say that that's what happened to you, but when your body shape started to change, people were more complimentary of your body shape.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's correct. Yeah,
and it was all about the shape of your body and the muscles and things like that. It wasn't. I didn't hear you say that people were saying, "Oh, it's good that you're getting fit and healthy."
No, it was.
You look good. You look hot. Yeah. You look ripped. And
when you're 14 and you've gone from being a lad that didn't get any female attention when your mates did, to then all of a sudden you start getting that attention at that age with hormonal changes, obviously going through puberty and stuff. You then kind of feel you feel powerful. You feel like, you know, you've gone from being not the best to the best. You know, you're beating people in races. You're back playing football again. You're stronger than everyone. But then unfortunately, where I was getting muscular, I thought I was still fat. So I was doing everything I can to cut calories. And yeah, it kind of went on a spiral from there, to the point where I was only eating certain food, certain times of the day. And if anyone tried to interfere, then I would just threaten to stop eating completely. And then I'd put my family into a position where, you know, awfully really of myself at the time, really selfishly, even though it wasn't me as such, it was more my illness, where they kind of was like, if he's eating that, at least he's eating something. If we try and stop him, then he's going to stop eating completely and we'll lose him. So I kind of manipulated everybody. I somehow managed to master being the manipulator of everyone, whether that be playing my parents off of each other, playing my sisters off each other, my family off of each other. Yeah, I caused a few rifts, put it that way, at the time.
Sort of manipulation is fairly much part of the disorder, to be honest. I mean, that's how people do it, whoever has a disorder. What's interesting, I suppose, from my perspective, and I don't know what your experience was like, and remember, and we've talked about this, so I know these are safe, but for people who are listening, Ryan and I have discussed the boundaries of this conversation, and Ryan knows that if I ask questions that make him uncomfortable or subjects that he doesn't want to talk about, he's perfectly capable to say no. But if there's anybody out there listening where some of these subjects are triggering, we will put up help. So Beat UK is a good eating disorders charity that can help people. Ryan's organisation, we'll put the link up to that. The Samaritans, if you're feeling suicidal, again, we'll put the links up to this. It's really important, anybody listening to this who may feel either they're in it now or they're just recently out or they're going into it, any of these issues or problems, to know that there are support mechanisms and help out there, and you can sort of get through this. That's why we're talking about this, is to give you the positivity. But I think it's really important we go through this bit first to understand your experience and what it was like. Now, for me, clinically, it's really interesting that as a man, you're discussing having an eating disorder, and in particular having anorexia as an eating disorder, because it's very rare. It's not. I mean, it tends to be that people with anorexia are young girls between a certain age, from 16 onwards. The majority are diagnosed at that sort of gender and that age. So it's relatively rare to hear young men and men talking about anorexia. And I happen to know, and I want to check with you as well, that it often presents differently. You're not necessarily, and you're confirming this, you're not necessarily looking significantly underweight. You may be looking well toned, which you were, but you were still anorexic, which means that you were not taking in enough calories to keep your body alive. Essentially, that's what anorexia means. You're not eating enough fuel to keep you alive long term, right?
Yeah, 100%. I got to a stage where on the BMI scale, I was slightly underweight. And I even at the time managed to convince the doctor that I was fine. And my parents begged the doctor, saying, look, he's not okay. He's not eating. Regardless of what you say, he's not right. And unfortunately, at the time, the doctor said, look, if he's telling me he's all right, and he's going to eat a bit more food to get back in that healthy weight range. It wasn't until I dropped down. I think my final weight when I went to hospital was, I think it was like 7.5 stone. It was around that mark. And at the time I was 5'11", 6 foot. I've always been quite tall. There's actually a picture on my website of me. And I look like something out of a concentration camp. That's the only way I can describe it. Yeah. I was just a skeleton, literally just skeletal, and my body was starting to shut down. And I think that was a big turning point for me when a doctor said to me that you've got two choices now. You're either going to eat, or we're going to force you to eat, or you're going to be fed through a tube, because you are going to die. There is no turning back now. You've gone too far. You're not walking out of that door tonight. You won't be walking out that door next week, the week after. And I kind of just remember passing out. I kind of just remember just laying on the bed and just thinking, do you know what, if whatever, I had that attitude, whatever, what will be kind of thing now. I knew I needed the help. I just didn't know how to get it. And I didn't want to admit defeat. And I remember waking up and I was hooked up to all different sorts of machines and heart monitors and drips and sort of like on a life support watch. It was really scary. And that was at that kind of point where I then had to make that decision that every ounce of effort I'd put into losing the weight and to get where I was there, I had to put that same amount of effort into beating the voices in my head, into starting the drive forwards. And like I say, I had fantastic support around me, and every time someone supported me, I used that as a driving mechanism. It's not me on my own anymore. These people that are behind me, I mean, they made scrapbooks, cards, presents. They did everything they could to keep pushing me forwards.
And how long was that period of time between, say, when you're transforming your body, it's maybe in a healthy way, you're losing fat, you're becoming more athletic, to the point where you're in hospital? How long did it take, do you think?
It was about 6 months. It got to a point where people were saying, look, enough's enough now. You need to stop. And it was at that time that my mum and dad took me to the doctors. And they said, yeah, you are slightly underweight on the BMI scale. But I managed, like I said at the time, I managed to convince the doctor, no, I'm okay.
When there's muscle involved, that's the problem. Because muscle, there's much more mass to it. So you actually have more weight because of muscle. And therefore it can fool the BMI. And it's not a good scale to use with, particularly I think with men, to be honest.
Yeah, and it was after that, I then just started cutting out. I think in a day I would eat 2 Weetabix with a bit of water on it,
right?
Not even milk. Fruit for lunch, and then for dinner I'd have a steamed bit of chicken, some broccoli, and a jacket potato. That was it every day.
Right. Okay. And you were working out as well, so you were
consistently getting up in the morning, going for runs, sit-ups, press-ups, weights, walking to school, walking home from school. yeah, walking around to my grandparents after school, anything I could do to burn as many calories as possible in a day.
Wow. And I guess when your parents were looking around for help, they were a bit lost as to what is there, because, like I say, anorexia in particular is often seen as a young women's illness. Young men sort of support services are, until organisations like yours, people like yourself, get set up, are sort of non-existent. I imagine they faced that struggle. Like, where do we go with this?
Yeah, my dad was working in America at the time. So he was flying backwards and forwards from the
Right.
States as well.
Right.
And like I say, I had manipulated the entire family. So it wasn't that they didn't want to help me. It was that I was threatening them if they even tried to interfere, I would do something stupid.
Yeah.
And
Yeah,
you kind of
hostage.
and you're kind of playing with people's emotions. Yeah. And it was a really, like I say, it was a really, at the time, it was a really selfish thing to do. I was using their love as a tool, as a weapon against them.
And can you remember why you were doing it? What sort of thoughts you were having? Do you mind sharing?
No, not at all. I was just petrified of getting fat again. Petrified of it. I thought if I ate a chocolate bar, I was going to be back to the old me that I didn't want to be anymore.
Yeah.
Because my mind was just telling me that if you eat that, you're going to get fat. If you do that, you're going to get fat. If you don't do this routine, you're going to get fat. Yeah, and I was just in like a cycle, just stuck in it was almost like, I can't think what the film's called, Groundhog Day.
Yeah.
It was just constant, everyday cycle. And I couldn't break the cycle. I think
I think it's a really important message to get across to people. If you're afraid of eating, there's a problem.
Mm-hmm.
Because we shouldn't be afraid of eating. I mean, all of us, to some extent, given the culture we live in, sometimes might think, I'm eating too much, or put on a bit of weight, when we have such a sort of culture now around that. But you're talking about a different order of stuff, aren't you? You're talking about looking at food and being really, really afraid of it and what it
means. Petrified. Just if I thought of putting at the time, the thought of putting anything to my lips apart from what I was comfortable eating, was I would rather not eat. I would rather. So if I didn't have the food in the house, I just wouldn't have eaten.
So the food was dangerous, and you're doing everything you could to survive, in a sense, away from that danger, avoid that danger. Is that right?
Yeah, correct. I was, because at the time I was also counting calories. I started counting calories at the very beginning.
Yes.
And I almost become like an encyclopedia. I knew the fat, calories, everything that was in a Magnum, from a chicken breast to a steak, and that wasn't even when I was unwell. That was just at the start, where I was just tracking things to lose a bit of weight at the beginning.
I get really worried about this calorie thing, because we're beginning to see it now in restaurants, on the menus. This is how many calories is in this. This is how many calories is in that. And we actually just don't need that information.
No, it's the educate. There's not enough education around it. For me, it's the crazy thing now is I now use the gym to keep myself grounded and disciplined, to keep myself focused. And I can go into the gym now. I can train. And nothing affects me. Nothing triggers anything, and that I'm very, very fortunate for that. If anything, it's a stress relief for me now. If I don't do it, I feel worse.
It's more than just good fortune. So you put the work in. And I will echo what you just said, Ryan, that often the treatment for something like an eating disorder or bulimia or anorexia would be, you're never allowed to go back and do exercise again because it's too dangerous. That you've reached a point where you can do it safely and you can use it in the way it should be used, which is to help your sense of well-being and keep yourself fit and healthy. It's a real testament to you, Ryan. It's well done, you.
It was frustrating for me when I first got better around 15, 16. I wanted to start playing football again. I wanted to start sport again. I always enjoyed sport, and everyone had always had that inkling fear in the back of their mind: is he going to go backwards?
No, don't let him do it, because
and it was so frustrating for me. But then at the time, I just said to myself, well, you put them through that hell like you did yourself, so now you've got to respect the fact that they love you and care about you, and you need to show them that you're okay. And I did. I started playing football again. I started training again, because believe it or not, once I had got out of that mindset that I wasn't going to get fat, I hated the way I looked. I was wearing baggy clothes. I wanted to do anything I could to hide my appearance. I wanted to put weight back on as quickly as possible. So I went from one extreme to the other.
Well, you probably needed to put the weight on, mate.
Yeah, I did. But then, believe it or not, contrary to belief, with people listening, it is harder to put weight on than it is to lose weight. It really is. No matter how hard you try. It is really hard.
When you've gone into that mode with your body, you're right. It is a real uphill struggle, and it's a real slog to get the number of calories in to bulk yourself up.
Every picture of me from the age of 14, after I just come out of hospital, to about the age of 16, 17, I'm in baggy clothes, t-shirt baggy, jeans baggy, because I hated looking skinny. So I thought if I wore bigger clothes, I'd look a bit bigger.
Yeah.
And that is.
So let's talk about your recovery then and how it worked for you. Because so one bit of the story is you hit this crisis, you have this hospital admission, and people should know this about eating disorders are seen as a mental illness in the UK, and you can face action under the Mental Health Act, which is, I presume, what happened to you, that you were sectioned.
Yeah, they actually didn't section me because I threatened that I'd go backwards. Again, I was a manipulative little bastard.
They allowed you in as a voluntary patient.
They allowed me in as a voluntary patient.
So that means section 2 rather than section 3.
Yes. And I said to them,
I'm going to challenge you because it's a technical thing. Section 2 is voluntary admission, but as soon as you try and walk out the door without their permission, it's a section 3. I promise you.
So I went to a mental health clinic with my mum and dad and my psychiatrist at the time, who I'd love to get back in contact with now because I still haven't found her. And I had a dietitian with me, and I got chatting to the guy that was running it. And I said to him, you want to take away from me the one support network that's actually got me to this stage. Okay. You want to lock me away here, away from my family and friends. That's what you want to do to me. I said, that's not going to work. You're going to do that to me, I'm going to go backwards. Here's the deal. I will come here every week, once a week with my parents, and you can track me, but I'm going back to Basildon Hospital and I want to spend my time there with my friends and family, because if you lock me up in here, I'm going backwards. And it won't make you look very good taking a boy on that's got anorexia. I'll be the only boy there with a load of girls, and it's not going to work. And he actually, to be fair, sat down, reasoned with me, said, look, I understand. I only want what's best for you. We're going to try that. But if you don't do that, I promise you now, I will section you. I said, no, that's fine. Shook my hand until that day, never actually got section 3 section. I was under him until, obviously, and then after I got discharged from hospital, I had to go once a week for counselling.
Right. That's brilliant use of the services. Well done, you.
Yeah, no, well, I said to him again, I suppose it was the controlling thing at the time, but at that point it was, look, the only thing that's got me this far, the only thing that's got me fit enough to actually be allowed to leave hospital and come here to see you is the fact I've had my mum and dad by my side, and the fact I've had my friends and my family by my side every single day.
I get it.
If I come here...
Where was that from? Your family, obviously, your mum and dad?
Yeah, mum, dad, grandparents, aunts, uncles, sisters, friends from school, friends from, I was at the Marine Cadets in the time, friends from Marine Cadets, football club. And I said to the gent at the time, I said, you're going to take away that one thing that's got me this far. You lock me up in here, that's fine. That's going to look like, you're doing great. You've got a boy here that you're helping, that's fine. And I kind of challenged him to, do you only want me here because I'll only be the only boy here and that's good on you, or do you actually want to help me? And it was kind of like, not a war with him, but it was kind of like, you want to do what's best for me, here's the deal, here's how it's going to work, because if you don't do it that way, I'm going to go backwards. If you leave me locked in a room, I will start exercising again, because in hospital I couldn't do that. I was on a ward, I was monitored by the nurses all the time, there was other patients on there, so I'm not going to start doing jumping jacks and run up and down the wall, because straight away people are going to say, get back in bed. Where they wanted to take me, I'd be left to my own devices pretty much a lot of the time of the day. I'd be in a locked room, although they could look through, I could do anything in that room. I could start doing press ups again, jumping jacks.
I'm sure you would have done as well. You'd agree.
Oh, yeah, I would have. 100% at the time, I would have.
Absolutely, without a doubt.
I would have. I can hand on heart say if I went there, I would not be here today. No way.
Right.
At the time when I was in hospital, there were nights when like I say, I was ready to check out. There were nights when I would look at that telephone cord round that TV monitor and think I could just wrap that around my neck right now and pull it tight and just do it.
Yeah.
But I didn't. But those thoughts were there.
So all your mates knew what was going on there. It wasn't hidden what was happening.
Yeah, no. All my friends, I think my friends at the time, they were really supportive. All they wanted to do was help me, but at the same time, they were only my age. How do you help someone?
Yeah.
What and they would say to me like, right, come and just eat something, just do this, just do that, and then I remember one of my friends at the time, Warren, said to me, all I want you to do, mate, is be better, but I don't know how to help you. Like, what can I do? And I said, you can't do anything. I don't even know what I want to do myself anymore. I don't know. I can't tell you what I need. I can't tell you what I want. All I know is this isn't me. I know I'm not right, but I don't know what to do. And that must have been very hard for them as well.
Yeah.
At that time, it must have been really hard because I couldn't imagine wanting to help one of my friends and not knowing what to do.
So what did they do if they couldn't give you clinical help?
They just let me know they were there. They just would just cuddle me. They would just put their arm around me and they would say, look, you're going to get better. We're not going to allow you to do anything. You're going to get better. But and we'll always be here. And they were top boys. And some of them are still really good friends with today. They were top lads. They never judged me. They never kicked me to the curb. They never judged me. All they wanted to do was get me back. And they still do now. And they're great support now for my Break the Stigma UK. They all wear the bands. They all wear the t-shirts. They've all donated. They've all done things, shared things. So yeah, they're great.
They were literally able to give you the one thing that professional mental health professionals cannot give you, which is they're able to give you love and concern.
And that's why I started Break the Stigma UK, brotherhood. That's what it's about. It's about, we're not professional. We don't claim to know what we're doing. We don't claim to be able to say we can fix you, because mental health is so diverse and so different. Everybody is different how they get better. But what we can say is, look, we've been through it. We're still standing here. We got through it and we'll help you get through it. Come join the brotherhood, come to some peer-to-peer support sessions, come grab a pint with us, come do the fun runs, come join the little Zoom calls that we do.
Okay. We're going to come to you setting up Break the Stigma. So you're treated as an outpatient with a specialist unit. They have they take the blinkers off and they support you. You have this support network. What else was helpful for you in that recovery road? So you have the crisis, you have the hospitalization where you get the realization that, the choices are accept the fact you're going to be force fed or just feed yourself. You decide to feed yourself, which is I think a much, much wiser decision. You have your support network. What else were the things that you found useful in those sort of did treatment help? Did they provide you with anything that was useful that you recommend to people?
Yeah, I started a diary. I started writing a journal diary every day. Good days, bad days, just jotting everything down.
Right.
Done a scrapbook filled with old pictures, new pictures, messages from friends and family. So if I was ever on my own, I'll just look to that. If I was ever having a bad day, I could just look to that.
Yeah.
The writing a diary really helped. I kept a diary for about 2 years afterwards. That was one of the things. No one ever
get any therapy or medication. Did any of those things help? I'm just.
I was on some antidepressants for a little while.
Okay.
But then I got to a point where I felt like I wasn't doing anything.
All right.
So I stopped taking them. I felt like it was kind of like your morning coffee. It got to that sort of stage where you have the coffee because it's got the caffeine in it. But if you don't have your morning coffee, actually realise I don't need it every day, kind of thing.
That's me and coffee, I'm telling you.
But that's how I got to the point.
Yeah.
I got to that point where they were helping, but then it was are these actually helping? Do I actually need to take these every morning anymore? And one morning I just weaned myself off of them. Obviously, I seeked professional help before doing it. I didn't just go, you know what, one morning I'm just going to stop taking them. I just explained the situation. I said that I don't feel I need to take these every day anymore. And yeah, I weaned myself off of them like that. And then after that, it was pure. Then just writing my thoughts down, looking back in scrapbooks, and also set myself targets, set myself goals. Nothing to do with nothing unrealistic, nothing like you need to put on 2 stone within the next month, or nothing to do with my weight. The goals purely were reach milestones, celebrate milestones. At the time, I was coming up to 16, reach your 16th birthday, have a 16th birthday party.
Right.
We're gonna go Fort Park at the end of the year. Reach these milestones, things to look forward to.
Good.
Little goals just set that are achievable, that aren't unrealistic, that if you don't achieve them, it's not the end of the world, but gives you something to strive for.
Did you get a nutritionist? Did they help at all?
Yeah, I had a nutritionist with my psychiatrist.
Dietitian. It would have been through the NHS, so it would have been dietitian.
Yeah, and they obviously set out like good foods, bad foods. Just explaining foods again. The hardest thing for me was once I tried a food I was petrified of again, I was then fine. It was actually just getting to the point to try it.
Yeah. So exposure work, really.
Yeah, it was kind of like the first takeaway after I come out of hospital. It took me a long time to actually convince myself around to eat.
Once you'd had it, you realise, yeah.
And then you eat the fish and chips, and you wake up the next day, you kind of look in the mirror and go, actually, that didn't actually hurt me at all.
Yeah, I didn't turn into Michelin Man just for
and then after about 6-7 months of actually toing and froing with that mindset of, oh my god, it's a new food. It was kind of you've eaten something with more calories in it than this, and it didn't do anything to you. So eating a bloody Mars bar isn't going to kill you. Yeah. And then I just, like I say, just started introducing foods again. It was tough. I'm sitting here rattling off like it was a walk in the park. It was like a roller coaster. It was up, down, upside down, inside out, backwards, forwards. It was. Everyone just seems.
Your mates about this roller coaster, how frightening it was. Were you sharing?
Yeah, I said to them, when I was having bad days, I'd say I'm not having a good day today, boys. I'm really not. I'm struggling, and I think that's why with me now, I'm so open about it, because I would hate to think anyone is going through.
I totally agree.
Suffering like I did, because it doesn't have to be that way, especially because it was body image related. It's kind of like I said a little while ago. I was 14 back then, and the exposure now to social media and influencers and things now is so much more than what it was back then. I was just looking in magazines and researching on Google, and trying to be something out of Men's Fitness magazine at the age of 14, which is so unrealistic. It's laughable. But at the time, that's what I wanted, and I was doing it behind my parents' back. No one knew. I didn't really understand it. I just thought, if I eat chicken and broccoli every day for a year and lift weights, I'm going to look like that.
But that's not the way it works. And how long into your recovery did it begin to make you think, you know what, this is working, this is what's helping, I want to help other people, I want to give them the opportunity, when you began to think about, well, I want to set something up, I want to support people through this myself?
Yeah, my biggest turning point as well with me was when I met my wife. Okay. She was a massive support for me, and it come out of the blue. They say that you never expect to find someone, then you find them. Yeah. And obviously I was really truthful with her about everything. And then about 3-4 years in being together, I felt strong enough. I was like, do you know what? I've done it. I've cracked it. I've beaten it. I've got now everything that kind of people.
So what age were you then when you were beginning to
24?
24.
It's
not that to sink in for people, because this is serious stuff. 10 years.
Yeah, 10 years. And then it was, I just said to myself at that point, you got to do something to help other people. It's always been a dream to do it, but then other things got in the way. My work, I was really trying hard at work, exams, and things like that. And then when lockdown hit, it was at a point I said, no, I need to do something now. If anyone's going to need help, it's going to be now. It's going to be, and yeah, and I was a bit obviously not nervous, but a bit kind of how people are going to perceive it. Is it going to be that, well, you've got no qualifications in that. What are you doing that for? You? But the support I've got was unbelievable. Even like from yourself, Noel, when I've spoken to you, like off there.
I remember you saying to me, "It's all right on the show because I'm not professional." I was like, "What? What are you talking about?" I know what professionals are.
Because but then I found with a lot of lads that speaking to someone that's not a professional helps them more. Yeah. The peer-to-peer support that they're just speaking to.
Yeah.
And I always say to lads as well, you got to remember that suicide's the biggest killer of us. Three
quarters of suicides are men. That's right. Yeah.
And 1 in 4 men suffer it. So I said, you're saying that you're struggling now, but if it's 1 in 4 men, that means there's doctors, paramedics, judges, lawyers. 1 in 4 men. That's a massive percentage. Yeah. Massive percentage of the men in the UK, and that's men from all over, professional jobs.
Coming back to the point about getting, I think it's very true for guys in particular that the routes into support are through other men, peer support, without a doubt. And I remember, like, this is because I'm a really old bloke now. Like, I remember when pterodactyls still flew around, dinosaurs. But this was going way back in time, right at the beginning of my practice. I was up in Scotland, and I was doing some work with men, or trying to get men involved, particularly single dads. And that was the catchment group that I had to try and catch hold of. It was just like every service that you went for or went to that was there as a support service, whether it was a crash or an emotional support group or an education group for anything. Everything was run and staffed by women, and was most of the members were women. So we would go to these family toddler groups, but they weren't for families. They were for mums and toddlers, without a doubt. And as a guy, you'd walk in and you'd be viewed with great suspicion, to be honest. You'd either be patronised or you'd be viewed as somebody who's a potential predator. That was it. And then people would go, why don't men turn up to services?
Yeah.
Well, some did, and then they did a runner straight away. And it's the reality, I think, that a lot of support services are predominantly run by and become available for women, not on purpose, it's just the way it is. And so when you say to me, well, I set up a support group which is with 4 men, then that pricks up my ears, because that is definitely going to work.
Yeah, it's like with we started doing pint talk, was what we called it, where we go to pubs and we grab a pint and we just talk about mental health half hour, and we just chat bollocks, basically. Pretty much we chat bollocks, but mental health's in there. And I think one of the most amazing things was, like you said, I was in Ibiza. I was chatting to someone in Ibiza actually about mental health, and he followed my page and he was really supportive. And he's actually the actor in the West End that's just played Hamlet. And I was chatting to this guy, but he was saying to me about how important it is, because the problem with us blokes is we do bottle things away. We do, whether it be physical broken bone or whether it be mental health. A lad will fall over, break his arm, and go, "Yeah, I'll go to the hospital tomorrow. I ain't worried about that." It's the same with mental health. But the problem with mental health is they get to that breaking point, and then they get told by the NHS, "Well, you got a 6-month wait." They need that help then.
Yeah,
and I think
because it's always an emergency when a guy turns up, because we haven't done the prep work beforehand to avoid the emergency. So here's a sort of interesting stat that for women, the majority of mental health issues that women struggle with are the more common depression, anxiety, and the majority of mental health problems that men struggle with, recorded problems, are the more serious end of the psychotic severe injury. And that's not because of gender differences, that's because of culture differences. It's not because of our sex differences. There's nothing genetically that makes men more vulnerable to psychotic episodes than women. It's simply that we don't get help at the early stages. And so therefore, by the time we're going to get help, we're like you, we've got no option.
Mm-hmm.
And our problems have presented, or, and this is the other option, we just kill ourselves. And that's the way it works. So what you're doing is absolutely fundamental and saves lives. So the lockdown happens, and that spurs you on to think, right, but why did it spur you on? I'm really interested why people turn around experiences of distress and decide to do something with it rather than, because it's like, I know it's enough that you got well. That's a struggle. Well done. Because that's really, I mean, it's like you got well from the mental illness that has the highest death rate. Eating disorders, without a doubt, have the highest death rate, right? And you got well from that. So that's in and of itself a huge achievement, right? Why did you, what is it about you, do you think, that made you want to go that extra step?
If I was going to go through that, it had to be worth something.
Okay, all right.
That's what I said to, you know, my wife and my family. If I was going to go through all that hell, all that pain, all that struggle, all that, if I can stop one person having to go through it like I did, then it was worth going through. It was worth going through it. It was worth doing, because then it's turned the negative into a positive, you know. Yeah, that was me then.
People worried when you decided to do this? Like, did your wife go, "Hey, are you sure you can do this?" Or your parents go, "It's going to relapse you"?
I thought long and hard about opening doors, because I knew full well I was going to have to open doors that hadn't been open for a long time. Yeah. It's part and parcel of doing it. You can't go, "Oh, no, I'm a mental health advocate," and then not talk about your problems. "Oh, I don't want to talk about that." You can't do that. You can't. You got to be seen to talk about it, to show people, "Oh, I went through this. This is me. These are the photos of me. This is me, 7.5 stone, stood there looking like a concentration camp victim. This is me now, 10 years later, in the gym, looking really fit and healthy. Yeah. This is me married with a family. This is me loving life now with my friends and everyone around me. This can be done. Although you're here now, this is where you can be." No. And it's not easy. It's not a straight line upwards. It's going to be up, down, backwards, forwards. It's going to be everywhere, but you can do it. And the most important thing to me, like I said before, is it's about having that. The biggest thing that got me through was support, and I wanted to create that brotherhood, that support network.
But did people try and stop you or put precautionary tales on you?
No one stopped. If anything, people were so supportive. Like I said, I was shocked. I spoke, obviously, thought about it, spoke to my wife about it, spoke to a few close friends about it, and they all said, "Do it. You've got the personality. You've got, you know, you've got the story. You've got the personality to do it." You know, and you've got our backing 100%. So then obviously I inquired about creating Break the Stigma C.I.C. rather than a charity, because people get very funny about giving to charity. So I've done it as a community interest company. So all the profits have to go back to the community, so then people can see where the profits go rather than just going in my back pocket. Because I don't take a penny from it. The only thing I do is just cover, obviously, the business expenses of running it.
Yeah.
I don't actually take any wage from it. I don't ever plan to. I've got my full-time job, and this is what I do on the side to support people, and I get a good feeling from it. And then, like I said,
so you researched it quite well then, in terms of
yeah.
It's going to be a proper organisation. It wasn't just going to be a laugh.
No, I wasn't just going to be an Instagram page that's set up and then 6 months later lost interest in it, because then you're giving people false hope. You can't do it, and you can't do that to people that need help. You can't, you know, say to people, "Oh yeah, we're going to be there for you," and then 6 months later, "I'm bored of this now. I'm just going to close it down." What's the point? There's no point in doing that. If you're going to do something to help people, you need to help people. You can't. And like I say, the majority, like I said before, the majority of lads I do get come to us are more sort of like drug related. They want to get off of cocaine. They want to get off of drinking, which was the big problem I had with Pint Talk. Because some people said, "Oh, you're just encouraging people to drink." I said, "Well, actually, no." I said, "I'm not. What I'm doing is I'm taking mental health to a lad's environment. Where do you find lads of an evening?"
Absolutely, yeah. You'll get those criticisms.
You find them down the pub. So if you take mental health talking to the pub, one, they're more likely to talk about it, and two, they might not grab that second pint.
Yeah. And and also I'm in recovery from alcoholism. I'd go down the pub with you and I'd just have a bit of water. So what, like there's no big deal. No big deal. But you're right that it's got to be go to where guys are and then they might come through the door. It was always that's how we talked about it was like, how do you get guys through the door? Well, you have to go to where they are. Because it's not, I don't know if this is your experience, but my experience is this. Men are more than happy to talk about stuff, but you've got to put them in an environment in which they're happy to talk about that stuff. That means an environment that feels comfortable to them.
I think the other problem with the stigma as well is I was reading a really interesting book, and it said about after World War II, when all the lads come back from World War II, saw all the things they saw, survived, and got thrown back into society with no help, no support.
That's right.
Had kids, had families, and then their lads would grow up and they'd get upset and they'd say, "Well, you don't know how good you've got it. Get on with it. You can't cry. You don't know how easy you've got it. You haven't been through what I've been through." And I suppose that's kind of just pegged itself down the generations.
Yeah, and there's a lot more than that going on. There's a lot of violence and anger from ex-service personnel because that's a normal part of PTSD. And so there was a lot of trauma was passed on down the line. You're absolutely spot on. And we're so much better about it these days, which brings me back to the two Royal lads, because they represent in many ways this shift in culture for men. And I think it's right. And you're part of that shift in culture for men. It's a shift that's needed, which is to get rid of this nonsense that you have to shut up about everything. We have to do the opposite. We have to open up. So you start off, you research, obviously somebody who thinks very carefully about things, and then you do things properly. You like to do things properly by the sounds of it. And so you research the company, organisation, structure. But literally, how did you start? What did you start doing?
I started a website and a couple of social media pages. And I just started posting content on Instagram, just little slideshows, just basically like motivation slides every morning. You wake up, you see our page, and it's like just a nice motivational slide, and then it started gaining traction. People started sharing it, started following it. Then recently went on.
Who typically was sharing and following it in the early days, do you think?
Just other random mental health support pages. A lot in America. I've noticed in America they have big mental health support pages in America where they like to promote pages and services. But some of them want to do it for a profit, so they want you to pay them to promote you and
stay away from those people.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, and then obviously a lot more lads would share it, which is really good, or they'd comment on it, so then the algorithms would work, and then you get more followers. And then you've only got to get kind of a good little bit of traction going, and I got to 1,600 followers, and it was kind of it was pretty good.
You understand these things, like you understand your recovery from like a deadly mental health problem, and then you say, "Oh yeah, it took 10 years." So I just decided I nearly took 10 years. I happen to know how difficult social media is to get traction on. So clearly, you put in a lot of effort to get traction. Without today, you put the hours in, right?
Yeah, every day we post something every day. TikTok we've used as well, but TikTok is just a completely different beast because I haven't quite worked out how their algorithm work, because we went from being for like 3,000 views and now we're only getting like 14, 15 views. Maybe I put something on that they didn't like.
It's that shadow banning thing that they do, which I don't quite understand.
No, I don't either, but we still post on there in a hope that it'll overturn. But yeah, then obviously just doing videos, coming onto podcasts like yours, Noel. Obviously, I did get a partnership with Nationwide Bank, which is quite big. I do a lot with them. I'm doing another talk with them on the 29th of September. So yeah, it's I just kind of plan to keep plodding along.
Besides the social media pages, there's actual groups that meet. Is there online groups as well that meet?
Yeah, we've done a couple of online, like peer-to-peer. Just like I said, we just basically chat. We just chinwag really, and more like of a lad chat, but just about mental health and just sharing stories. And obviously we started Pint Talk, and then we're gonna hopefully do an event at the end of this year, start of next year, like a boxing event. Obviously to raise money for Break the Stigma and for Samaritans and other mental health charities as well. So
I've just started BoxFit. I love it.
Boxing's great.
It's amazing. It's the most difficult exercise I've ever done in my life. I did 20 seconds of boxing and I felt like falling over. And I just thought, some blokes do this 12 rounds, 3 minutes, while somebody else is thumping them.
Yeah.
Like,
it's a lot.
what?
It's a lot hard. It's a lot harder when they punch back.
Oh my God. It's like,
it's and obviously down the gym as well. I want to start doing videos in gyms, but that's going to be sort of more in the winter, and just walking up to people and asking people as well. I've got a few ideas of how to do some stuff for YouTube. But obviously where I'm on my own and I've got my mates around me, you got to sit down and get creative with it. It's kind of hard, but we push the social media. If anyone reaches out to us, we have just a general conversation with them, and if we can't help them, or they, we put them onto Samaritans, we put them onto how they can get help. But like I say, a lot of the lads that approach my page at the moment is they want to get off of drugs. Yeah. They know they've got a problem, but they just don't know where to turn to. So we just say, look, you can talk to Frank, you can do this, you can, there's options there. And it's amazing that how many, that although they're advertised, that people just don't know how to get that access.
Yeah.
So
but it's amazing thing as well that, and again, this whole thing, this conversation that goes on about men don't want to get help. It's not that. It's just the help is offered in a way that isn't conducive, doesn't work. That's the truth.
Yeah, and the other problem, like you said before, though, is we do leave things. That's built within our nature. If we fall over, like I said, if you fall over and break your arm, I'll leave that till tomorrow. I've done it myself. I've been tackled in football and gone, I'll be all right, and then gone down it, you've broken your foot. Why didn't you come here yesterday? And I think it's the same in mental health. It starts little niggly things start. It'd be all right. It'd be fine. And then that all of a sudden it spirals, and then they need the help, but then they get told there's a wait. And I do feel sorry for doctors now as well. I really do. I feel sorry for GPs because they do get fronted with this issue that is getting bigger and bigger, and there just isn't enough manpower to deal with it, and all they can do is prescribe medication.
I agree with you. I think there is, but I think the current crisis in the provision of mental health services is going to have to force us to be creative about it. Now, it may seem odd coming from me because I've dedicated my life to being a professional mental health person. That's what I do for a living. But I genuinely don't believe that that's the way to go with mental health. I believe the way to go is the way you're going, and I believe the way to go is with looking at how we do our lives so that we're healthy, not how we do specialist interventions. And so GPs now have this thing called social prescribing. Have you heard about it?
I haven't heard about social prescribing.
Social prescribing is that they can give you access to a group, a walking group, or a local interest group, and they can do that instead of giving you tablets or psychotherapy for your depression. And you know what? It works better.
Yeah, like I said, I do feel sorry for it because it's kind of like they're not, they've got some tools to help, but I suppose, like you say, if you give people the tools with intervention, that pretty much is what it is. You learn to deal with the demons that you got in your head. You don't just switch them off. That's not how it works.
The best way for any of us to learn to deal with stuff in our head is to talk to other people about it. That's it, which is what you're offering. In terms of, so we've got a sense of where people can go to. They can go to your website and find where all the various services that you've got on offer are. How can people help you, Ryan?
We sell T-shirts, we sell wristbands. That's our two biggest sort of fundraisers, really. And obviously, we do events. If we do pint talks, we do ask for small donations. But yeah, wristbands, they're just messages for our Instagram page, or T-shirts. That's the biggest support.
And they can be purchased from your website, I presume?
No, they can't be purchased through the website at the moment because the website's undergoing maintenance. But if people just drop us a message on Instagram, we can just obviously send them bank details, send them receipt, and get their
Instagram handle is at Break the
Stigma UK. Yeah.
And it has to have the UK on it, folks. I know this from having to search it out because there are a lot of Break the Stigma organisations. And it's Break the Stigma UK, which has that black and white motif that you have on your...
Yeah, it's that one there.
Yeah. Which looks a bit like a handlebar moustache, but it's actually two.
Yeah, it's two blokes kind of arm wrestling type thing.
Oh, it does look like a handlebar moustache. but it is two muscly arms. Listen, Ryan, it's been brilliant to have you on. I'm a great advocate of these types of approaches to mental health. Have you got any events coming up in the near future that people might be able to engage with, or is it just best to go to Instagram and say hi through that?
Yeah, no, anything we do will be on Instagram first and our Facebook page first, because they're both linked, and we do update the website with obviously events that are coming up. We are planning to do a boxing event. That's just in the motions at the moment.
Well, let me know, because I might have done enough.
Might have done enough training to come and do 3 rounds.
Well, I'm doing the boxing at my local yoga centre, and this is how rubbish I am at it. One of my yoga teachers, I'm afraid of her in case she hits me, because she's been doing a lot more than me. So there you go. So
yeah, we are planning a boxing event, so that'll be our first kind of big event that we plan to do.
Brilliant. And when's that likely to happen, do you think?
I'm hoping to do it early part of next year, so maybe March, April time.
Okay, brilliant.
Let everyone get Christmas and New Year out of the way first.
And you do all of this, and on top of it, you have a full-time job.
Yeah.
You're a dad?
No, only to a dog.
That's still a dad, and you're a husband.
And a husband as well, yeah.
And a son, and a good mate, by the sounds of it. So more power to the elbow. It's been great to have you on the show. Unfortunately, we have to finish. I told you, I say this to everybody, an hour goes really quick.
Yeah.
Because everybody goes, I can't fill up an hour, but you know, we're done. It's been really good to have you on. I hope to bring you back in and Recycle come back sort of in the not too distant future, so we can catch up with where you're at and make sure that you're getting help and support. And really, congratulations on everything you've done. And congratulations on getting well.
Thank you, Noel.
That's extraordinary. It's a real massive achievement, mate. I'm really sort of in awe of you and admiration of you, and then to turn that around and start helping other people is extraordinary. You stay there. I'm going to say goodbye to everybody. What a brilliant show to start the new season with. And I will catch up with you all next week. And of course, we'll have a chat a little bit about the funeral, because that will be happening on Monday. So I'm going to say goodbye for now, and I'll see you all next week.